because of 4 Democrats who were afraid of taking on their voters in pro-gun states.
Gloria, let me stop you there. Forgive me. Stay with me. I want to turn now. I'm told that there is an FBI news conference just underway talking about the aftermath of the San Bernardino shootings. Remember, 14 people killed there. Let's dip in.
Eric Harden and the chief of Redlands Police Department, Mark Garcia, and then the head of counterterrorism in L.A., Steve Woolry, for the FBI. First off, I want to tell you that through the holidays, our folks were working this investigation. They continued to work it. This is, as I've said from day one, this is a priority investigation and will continue to be such. To date, we've conducted over 550 interviews. We have collected 500 pieces of evidence. We've also executed 29 search warrants on this investigation to date. We have scrubbed a number of social media. As I told you from day one, that was one of our big focuses to ensure that we are able to hopefully determine the motivation of Saeed Farook and his wife. Based on a variety of sources, we have determined, at least to some extent, the movements of Saeed and Tashfeen that date after the actual incident, before and after the incident occurred. We have accounted for 3 hours and 42 minutes of their time. We are missing 18 minutes of their time. So why is that 18 minutes so important? It's important because we want to ensure that we know whether or not they stopped at any locations, any residences, any businesses that we don't already know about. We want to ensure that if they made contact with anyone that we don't already know about between those hours, or between that time, that we're able to fully investigate those matters. I've told you from day one we will leave no stone unturned in this investigation. This is not an average investigation. We all know that. That's obvious. But for that purpose, that's why we're really here today. We want to talk directly to the public, and we want to ensure that they understand what we're missing. And I'm going to go through a timeline very quickly for you. And then I'm going to ask the public to hopefully help us out with this investigation and to, if you have information, to come to us with it. So the timeline, as we know so far, they left their house at 8:37 a.m. on December 2nd. They arrived at, he left his house at 8:37 a.m. He arrived at the IRC at 8:47 a.m. He left the IRC at 10:37 a.m. He then returned. There's about 19 minutes there. He later returned to the IRC at 10:56 a.m. And over the next few minutes, the attack took place inside the IRC, where multiple people were shot and 14 people were killed. They then visited Lake Seacom at roughly 11:45 a.m. that morning. The missing timeline I have, and this is where I asked the public for the public's assistance, the missing timeline we have is from 12:59 p.m. to 1:17 p.m. on December 2nd. Again, 12:59 to 1:17 p.m. That's 18 minutes of time we're missing. Now, how did we account for this? We accounted for this from a variety of sources: traffic cameras, surveillance cameras, witness accounts, and other techniques. And that's the time that we're missing. And we just want to make sure that if the public has any media in their holdings, witnessed any sightings, that you come to us and please give us that information, because we want to make absolutely certain that we know as much as we can possibly know about their activities, both before and after the attack that day, leading up to the point where the police engaged them and ultimately killed them both. I'm going to point out the map. And the map is here, as you can see. The L shape that you see goes through the city of Redlands and the city of San Bernardino. That is the area that we know these two were in following and prior to the shooting. They went back and forth, and it's a whole route that they took, and there's no rhyme or reason that we can make for it yet. However, again, that 18 minutes is critical. We know they went and they parked at certain places. And we know they spent some time at those places. We don't know necessarily what they were doing at those places. But that route is important for you to understand. In the spirit of leaving no stone unturned for the victims, that's why we're here. And we ask the public to call. The number that I'm going to give to you for the public is 1-800-225-5324. That's 1-800-CALL-FBI. When you call in as the public, you hit option 4. Once you hit that option, you will be directed to a physical person, and they will assess your call, and if necessary, they will send you a URL or a place you can upload any media that you have. Now, I will say to business owners and to homeowners and citizens, if you've already been talked to and you've already turned this information over, thank you. That's helped us construct this timeline. If you have not been talked to by the FBI, because we have talked to a number of people, those 550 plus interviews don't even account these types of interviews. If you've not been talked to and you have some sort of media in your holdings, or you have surveillance camera footage or cell phone footage, please give that to us. So please call that number. Again, 1-800-225-5324. Our operators are available right now, and they can help you determine whether your material can be sent to us. The additional display of photos we have to help you hone in on that information are here. This is a suspect vehicle. The license plate is very different from our area. Obviously, that's a Utah plate. That is the plate that came back to that rental car that Tashfeen and Saeed were driving that day. At this point, I'm going to thank you, first of all, thank you for your continued support for this investigation. I'm also going to thank you for those of you that have given the families their privacy. The families have been through a lot. We've engaged with them once already. We will continue to engage with them again very soon. We want to keep them updated. They went through a tremendous amount of trauma, and will continue for many months and ultimately years, and their holidays were not the same as many of yours and ours. So thank you, and I will take questions. Yes, sir.
The map is a little difficult to discern, but it's starting at the far left right angle and heading to the right. Can you show the streets?
No, I don't have that today. Okay. I'm not going to go through because it is very convoluted. We can essentially trace their route, and they went back and forth and up and down. It's very difficult to discern for me at this point.
The thoroughfares they use, essentially?
Well, that's the area, the box within which they stayed. Okay. And just within that box, we don't have anything that indicates they left that box, but we're missing about that 18 minutes of footage. We're dark.
Yeah, not the actual route, but just the parameters of where they were cruising around.
That's correct. Right. Yes, sir.
And
yes, sir.
The meeting people or seeing people during those period would you have things you had for?
We do not at this point. Yes, sir.
What did you recover from the lake? Did it belong to them, and what did you recover off of there, if anything?
We recovered a number of items from the lake, none of which to this point seem pertinent and relevant to this investigation. However, because we know they stopped there right next to the lake, we did feel it was worth the investment of our time and resources to go out and search that lake, and I think we would have been remiss had we not done so. Yes, sir.
Would you be able to link the two suspects to any other network or any other people at this point?
Good question. As of today, we do not see any indications of a foreign-directed terrorist act. This seems to be an inspired terrorist act.
I have a question about I guess so they showed up at the IRC and started shooting at 10:56. They were there for a few minutes, and they got to Seacom Lake at 11:45 a.m. So that's 45 minutes. Were they just driving around the whole time?
Yes, they were.
Is there evidence that they stopped anywhere else?
There is not evidence that they stopped. There is not evidence that they stopped anywhere. There is evidence that they stopped at a parking lot, and they also stopped at the lake, yes. Other than that, it was a lot of driving around.
What parking lot?
I don't recall the exact location.
And did they stay there for a while?
No.
Okay.
Not long.
What does it tell you when these people go in there and shoot, I guess it was 36 people, and then they just remain in the area, and in fact, they went home?
We don't know what to make of it. As we have said from day one, they were obviously heavily armed. They had a lot of ammunition. We do not know of any secondary targets that they intended to hit that day, but it's certainly not beyond the realm of possibility, but we're unaware of any secondary targets. Yes,
Do you know why they went home or how long they were there?
Pardon me?
Why they went home and how long they were there and what they were doing at home?
We do not.
Is he brother again?
Two questions. One, will you be releasing the Enrique Marquez 911 tape?
Not at this point. We are still discussing it at this point, but no, not yet. Yes, ma'am, you've been trying.
Oh, yeah. Can you just account for two questions? The first is, where were they last seen at 12:59? Because you say that's where the gap starts. And the other question is, in general, you say it's critical to account for these 18 minutes. Is it critical just to build the timeline, or why is it critical? Do you think this is going to lead you somewhere else, to some other person or other charge in this case?
So I don't have the exact place where they were last seen at 12:59. They were within that box. But yes, again, why is that 18 minutes critical? It's critical because it's possible, again, possible, that they stopped at whether it be a storage area, a residence, a business. It's possible there was a contact made. We just don't know. It very well may not be an important fact. But until we close that gap, we just don't know for sure.
And then
Yes,
What did Syed do while he was in the meeting in the morning? And did he take anything in with him that was part of the attack?
he did. He took a backpack in with him, and he left that backpack. Inside that backpack is where the pipe bombs were.
And that happened early in the morning before the shooting, before he even left?
Yes, it did.
And then at 1:17, where the 18-minute gap ends, where are they, or where are they at that point?
I don't. They're within that L shape because they moved around so much. It's hard to tell exactly where they were and at every single point. But we can track generally their movements to some extent based on all those indicators I talked to you earlier about and other techniques. But those indicators would be traffic cameras, surveillance cameras, witness accounts, that type of thing.
But at either end of the 18 minutes, you don't have at least a vague idea of where they were at?
I don't have that with me.
What was the exact time they were picked up by police? There was like a short...
Well, they were initially seen on the surveillance at 2:52 p.m. That's when the surveillance initially caught them driving up to the house. Shortly thereafter, the engagement with police took place, and that's when you had the firefight and ultimately their demise.
And between what better idea of why they did this?
We definitely believe this was an inspired act. We do not, again, have any indications of a foreign-directed act as of today.
Any personal grievances that you've come to learn about? Why they did, what turned them into killers, and why did they choose this particular target?
Well, you can read the complaint on Enrique. There's some indications in there as to why they chose this intended target, this particular target. I do not know that. I know there was a lot of chatter early on about workplace disputes. We do not see any indications of that. We do not see any witness accounts where there was a fight or an argument with Saeed inside the venue at which this act occurred. Yes, ma'am.
3 hours and 42 minutes you've accounted for the span of
Correct.
this, except for the 18. During that time, do you have any record cell phone contact that they had with other people during that time, or text messaging? Did they go inside the house where they lived?
I don't have that available to me. They did not go inside the house.
As far
Yes,
as the...
You said the 255 surveillance. What surveillance camera is that? Is that a...
No, that was the 2:52 p.m.?
Yes.
That was surveillance. That was the actual detectives who saw the
surveillance.
vehicle driving up. I'm going to take 3 more questions. At this.
Can you please characterize just this whole time? You described it a little bit, but were they just sort of zigzagging around? Were they stopping?
A lot of zigzagging around, going back and forth on the highway, going up, going down. There is no rhyme or reason to it that we can find yet. Maybe that 18-minute closes that gap. Maybe it doesn't.
And between 117 and 252, just more of the same? No
More of the
stopping?
same, yes. Yes.
Have
Yes.
you been able to determine yet if Philippe was targeting local schools or any other targets for planning for a bigger attack?
Other than what you see in the complaint for Enrique Marquez that's already out there, and that listed the Riverside Community College. Other than that, we see no indications of any intended attacks on schools. I'll take 2 questions. I'll give an extra.
Where was Kashmir during his initial visit to the...
Good question. We don't know the answer. It's possible she was in the vehicle the whole time. We just don't know for sure. 1 more question.
Can
Yes.
you talk about what, from witnesses that were in the meeting with him for the hour and a half that he was there, what was his demeanor?
The demeanor seemed to be okay. There are photographs with him inside the venue. Seemed to be okay. Again, originally there were accounts that there was some sort of a dispute, that there was some sort of an argument. We have found no legitimate accounts of anything like that at this point.
Photographs with his work, with his colleagues at the Christmas party?
Correct. He sat there with them. There's photographs with him, yes. So at this point, I'm going to end it.
Maybe a question?
Sure.
All right, so the FBI, you know the shootings. We covered them live here on the show. The shootings in San Bernardino just a couple of weeks ago, 14 people killed, so many others injured. That was the FBI essentially saying, listen, this investigation has been, of course, our priority even through the holidays. They have gone through hundreds of pieces of evidence and witness interviews and have scrubbed social media. And the key is this 18-minute stretch of time. They're asking the public if you knew anything, if you have media, if you saw these folks, pictures, whatever. They want to hear from you from that day. I have Evan Perez with me, our justice correspondent. We're bringing Mike Bouchard back, former assistant director at the ATF, because I think it's interesting how they're talking to the public, Mike, and I'm going to ask you about that. But first, Evan, to you, I mean, why is it so important? I have to imagine, you know, to get every single second of that TikTok of that day to answer the question of the why, right?
Right, exactly. The why, and really whether there's anybody else that they don't know of who had anything at all to do with this, Brooke. That's what the big question remains. And as long as you don't have those 18 minutes, you can't rule out that they might not have met with someone, that they might not have been communicating with someone, taking a phone call on one of their cell phones. If you recall, they did have one cell phone that they were able to track, and they were able to find that they went to this lake and this park, this regional park, where they did that search that we carried the pictures of. So they knew a little bit about their where they've been, and as you can tell, they saw where they were. What they don't know exactly about is this 18 minutes, and it's a very big leap for them to even get to this point, because if you remember, after this event, at first they didn't know about the 4 hours. You know, there was a lot they didn't know about the 4 hours in between the time that they carried out the attack and the time that they finally engaged in the final shootout with those federal agents. So this 18 minutes is very, very crucial to try to just determine whether or not anybody else, and again, right now, there's no evidence that indicates that there's anybody else that had anything to do with this. They believe this is an inspired attack that these two people carried out based on the fact that they were radicalized. But again, you can't rule out any of that possibility without knowing about these 18 minutes.
So then, Mike, to you, I'm curious, how unusual is it to have the FBI hold a news conference and straight up ask, you know, the public, we need your help because we need to know what happened in these 18 minutes?
This is unusual. That 18 minutes, I think they want to just close the loop, make sure that there's nothing that they missed, that they didn't meet with a co-conspirator. There's no evidence that they were going to attack any other places. And, you know, they just want to make sure that they didn't meet with someone else and discuss some future plans. But none of this really makes sense. When active shooters go in and conduct these acts, they expect that they're going to get killed at the end of when the police arrive. These two, he left a backpack with pipe bombs earlier in the morning. They did the shootings. He knew that he would get caught probably that day. So it's odd that he would try and dispose of evidence because he was going to get caught by the police because they knew who he was. I think they were just driving around, and my belief is they were just waiting to engage the police and finish it off in a different way.
But again, hearing from the FBI appears truly to be a self-inspired terror attack, not foreign-inspired, which is what essentially they were saying more or less from the get-go. But they want the information for the 18 minutes. For now, Evan Perez and Mike Bouchard, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Now this.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.